The New York Knicks will take on the Washington Wizards tonight. And one of the main things we're looking at going into this game is who are going to be the starters for the New York Knicks. Because if you're watching the game on Wednesday, Quentin Grimes left that game late due to a hand injury. But thanks to Steve Popper of Newsday, we now have an update about Grimes and his potential status for tonight's game. Not only that, former Knicks GM Scott Perry actually joined ESPN recently, and he gave an update on the Knicks potentially chasing after these disgruntled stars and why he thinks it's not a great idea. We're going to break down all of this and so much more today. So be sure you subscribe to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. Thanks to an NBA insider, we now have an update on Quentin Grimes and his injury headed into this game tonight against the Washington Wizards. Again, shout out to Steve Popper of Newsday for giving us the following information. Quentin Grimes has been diagnosed with a sprained left wrist. Grimes and RJ Barrett are both questionable for tonight's game against the Washington Wizards. Shout out to Steve Popper for giving us this great update here about Quentin Grimes, because during the game, when he had the injury, if you were watching, he injured it and he took a beeline to the bench and then went straight to the locker room. So we had no idea what type of injury that he had. We knew it was a hand injury because he was holding his hand, but we could not understand the type of injury at that point that it was. But thanks to Steve Popper, we now understand that Quentin Grimes' injury is a sprained left wrist. Now, while we understand that, what I can say is that the injury could have been a lot worse, and potentially he could have been out for a lot longer. The fact that he only has a sprained left wrist and that he is questionable for tonight's game tells me that the injury was not as severe as we were led to believe during that game. When the injury happened, he made a beeline for the locker room, so nobody could tell the severity of the injury or how many games he would be out because of it. Right now, he is questionable, which I'm very thankful for. It's a sprained left wrist, which I don't like, but still, I'd rather it be a sprain and something minor than something a lot more major. So for right now, I'm going to count my blessings and say thank goodness that Quentin Grimes only has a sprained left wrist. He's more or less okay. He's questionable tonight with RJ Barrett, who also has missed the last few games due to migraines. Hopefully, both of them will be in the starting lineup for the Knicks against this struggling Wizards team tonight. Because even though they're struggling, they're still an NBA team. And any NBA team on any given night can beat another NBA team. It's just that easy. And it goes down to who's locked in, ready, and focused for that game, as well as the talent you have on your roster. And right now, the Wizards are still trying to figure out their roster and their roster construction and all the players that they have and what they can do, led by Jordan Poole. With the New York Knicks, they still have a couple of things to figure out. Hopefully, one of the things they won't have to figure out is that starting unit for tonight. But until game time tonight, that's when I anticipate us getting an update from Tom Thibodeau regarding who's going to be starting for the Knicks. So we're going to have to wait a little bit of time, but I am thankful to at least get this update. Shout out to Steve Popper again. Thank you so much for giving us this update. I'm glad it's not something severe, and hopefully Quentin Grimes comes back sooner rather than later. Former Knicks GM Scott Perry recently spoke about the issues with star chasing and trading for disgruntled stars. Now, we all know with the New York Knicks, they have their eyes on certain stars. Joel Embiid, Donovan Mitchell, Zach LaVine, a couple of other stars as well too, but a lot of these stars may be disgruntled with their current team. And Scott Perry, who was recently on the Hoops Genius podcast with ESPN, recently spoke about this and spoke about teams like the Knicks going after these stars and why he thinks it's not a good idea. Roll the clip.
One thing I would say, this was talking with someone actually in professional football a while ago. If a guy's disgruntled somewhere else, what makes you think he won't be disgruntled when he comes to you?
James Hudson.
Sorry, I'm just saying. And so, but you hear this as a strategy now that, okay, we'll just be prepared for the next disgruntled superstar. And I guess the disgruntled part, these disgruntled superstars would argue is that, well, the team that I'm currently on is not doing enough to try to win and get me to a championship. So I need to go to place B to get their championship. But again, like there's an old saying, the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence. We like to think that it is just change for the sake of change. So me personally, you have to proceed with real caution, because when I had that person tell me that a disgruntled player at another team, there's no guarantee that he's going to be, become not disgruntled when he comes to your team. I don't have that big of I have a strong belief in the environments that I've always been a part of and tried to help fostering and building a great, everybody uses that word culture, but a great place to go to work on a daily basis. Let's put it that way. So I have extreme confidence in that, in my ability, but I don't have the arrogance necessarily to believe that, okay, the guy's going to come to our place and he's going to be just happy because
the grass is not always greener on the other side. What another great interview by Scott Perry on the Hoops Genius podcast with ESPN. It was very good. I encourage all of you to watch the entire episode because he drops a lot of gems. But this one for me was one of the biggest ones because every single offseason, especially this one, there have been a number of names linked to the New York Knicks. Zion Williamson specifically has been one of them. In my interview with Mark Berman, an NBA insider, he actually reported that the Knicks checked in on Zion Williamson this past offseason. However, when I heard that, other people were more hype, excited, wanting the Knicks to go after Zion. For me, I was actually on the Scott Perry train because I was thinking, if he's unhappy in New Orleans, how long is it going to be before he's unhappy in New York? Because what things they did in New Orleans, who's to say the Knicks wouldn't do the same things in New York? Who's to say any team wouldn't do that? The Bulls, for instance, Zach LaVine, he's not happy over there, right? He wants to be traded. He wants to go over to a different team. Maybe he thinks he can win with a different team. Is that team going to utilize him the same way? Is he going to be happy with that? Or is he going to grow disgruntled again? These are the things and the questions every NBA team has to ask themselves before they trade for that quote-unquote star player or superstar player. Because just because they are that type of player and they are known to play at a high level when they're on top of their game, doesn't mean that's the player when you trade for him you're going to get. You might get half of that player. You might not get the exact same player because they're not happy in the situation that they're in. And if they're not happy and you gave up all of these assets to get that player, now you're stuck with a player who's just as unhappy in another situation and you have less assets to show for it. I am never going to be okay with the New York Knicks going after these star players who potentially do not want to be on the New York Knicks and also are currently disgruntled with their current team. Because there are a lot of times that these stars, if they're disgruntled on that team, if you trade for them, will become disgruntled on your own team. Donovan Mitchell, he wants to win, right? After 3 or 4 years of potentially not winning in New York, will the same conversation that we're having right now with him and the Cavs, will we be having it with him and the Knicks? It's a good question to ask yourself, and I think that's why Leon Rose has been so patient in adding that star. And that's why if you look, he's only going after stars that he has a personal relationship with, or they have a connection to New York, or they have some type of relationship that will likely keep them in New York for years to come. Those are the players that Leon Rose is going after. And the reason he's going after those players is extremely simple. Because when it comes time for them to want to leave or stay, the players that have connections, that have the ability to understand that they're building something in New York, or they love New York, or they love the relationship they have with Leon Rose, those players will put those things on the table in terms of trade negotiations and in terms of contracts and in terms of deals. And it's more likely that the players that feel a type of connection to Leon or the Knicks or New York will likely stay for the franchise and the team longer than players that don't have that feeling. And I think that's exactly what the Knicks are doing and what they're targeting right now. But what about you guys? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think about Quentin Grimes and his injury? What about Scott Perry and his comments on star chasing after disgruntled stars? What do you think about his feedback and comments on that? Let me know below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below. And of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knick fans. Peace.